Hello to everyone on Facebook. This is the first time I've ever done this, so forgive me if this is crap. But it's me, James. Now, it's interesting because I've never really been that active on Facebook. But recently, due to changes in my life and whatnot, now I have to become more socially media aware because I think it's especially in the times that we're living in currently. I mean, it's for some poor people, it's the only way to communicate as well. And just to touch on that straight away, from every ounce of my being, I hope every one of you is fit and healthy, and your loved ones, your children, your family, absolutely everyone within your lives are all well, genuinely just really, really well. I think I wanted to make this video because due to a change in profession, it's important that I start practicing what I preach. And for me, it's interesting. I look back through, which I did yesterday, all of you amazing people, every single one of you that are friends on my Facebook page, and I realised just how many different phases of my life that covers, and how many different versions of me, how many different, right, so I keep itching, I'm not nervous, that was a genuine itch. How many different roles we've played throughout our lives. And first and foremost, everyone that is a friend of mine on Facebook, whether it's family members or friends, you're all the same. You've all, to some extent, have had an impact on my life and what makes the story of my life. And to some extent, it's the same with me, with yours. We've had interaction of some sort. There's memories there. And for me, and getting to this stage where, especially I think about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was at a real low. There'll be some things that I mention on here as well that people won't know about me and would have known that they've happened to me. But I think as well, what brought this to light is when you become a parent, and I know a lot of you can share that out here. And again, to every one of you that I've not ever congratulated, for the ones that have become parents, congratulations from, again, every part of me, because it is the best feeling in the world. And it's just it's a lesson in unconditional love, and it's a real lesson about yourself. Well, for me, it made me really look at who I am, what are my core values, and also, I'm sure parents can relate, you can't help but sometimes just think, because unfortunately there's a lot of negativity around as well, especially around some of the stuff that happens to kids. It's just heartbreaking, that you start imagining sometimes the world, what would happen if this happened to my son. I've got a little boy, Leo. He's amazing. He's 9, and I've got a beautiful little girl, Aaliyah. She's 3. Incredible. I'm a beautiful wife. I'm so blessed and lucky in that sense. And you start imagining sometimes the worst. And what's interesting is about 2 or 3 years ago, I hit a bit of a lull in my life, to be completely honest. I didn't tell. Again, this will be a surprise to quite a lot of people, probably, because you tend, like most, you mask it off because you feel weak, and you start questioning things you've done in your life. And for me, I just started looking back at things that have happened to me, things that I've done. This isn't a blame thing. This is not a victim video either, by the way. Far from it. This is me clearing out my closet and wanting it to share on a platform where, moving forward now, I'm going to be using this more. And rather than just burst on the scene with what I do, which I'm going to touch on, I'd rather give you the backstory. I feel I owe you guys that. And that, again, I feel I owe Facebook that, as in you guys, people that I know, because of the egotistical view I've built around Facebook, and the fact that facing you is that facing all my demons, and which in a way, with to some extent, it is. It is. That sounds awful. There's loads of happy. I love the people. Like I said, I've interacted with all of you. To some extent, like I said, you've had a great impact on my life and my story. and I'm so appreciative to all of you. I mean that to every single one of you, and I would thank every single one of you. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity. But also, there would have been people I've hurt on here to some extent, you know, even if it's a little thing. And yeah, just the stage I've got to in life, I want to genuinely, to anyone that I've upset in any way for my actions, I'm truly sorry. First and foremost, truly sorry, because I realise now, especially like I said, after becoming a dad and just going through my own development of having to break first as well, big time, to be able to now say to you, like, yeah, look, I'm really sorry, I mean it. There's nothing I can do about my past, the stuff that's happened, and this is part of the message as well, because that's been a game changer for me, realising that you don't own your past, and yes, you can learn from it, but I'll only speak for myself. There's definitely stuff that I didn't deal with in my past that I held on to, which has had detrimental effects of my presence, my now, which is, at the end of the day, the only thing I've got control of is I ain't got control of what's happening in the future, what's gone on in the past. I've only got my now. And when I realised how important it is for all of us as humans, we're not perfect, none of us are. In fact, we're perfectly imperfect creations. I don't think we're an accident. I'm not a religious person. I've got respect for religion, all religions, but I don't think that we're some big accident. After seeing my son and then my daughter born, for me, I witnessed creation. But anyway, it's another topic. But yeah, point being, I think it came at a good time for me to have a bit of a clear out on here before I start making more, like I said, videos, doing what I do professionally. So anyway, about 2 or 3 years ago, it was not long after my little girl was born, it made me realise that there was a part of my life that I've never dealt with properly. And like I said, there'll be the majority of you on here would have known me, probably the majority, or maybe half and half would have known me around this time. But in my early teenage years, I was sexually abused by a friend of the family, and I dealt with it horrifically. I didn't tell anyone, first and foremost, about it. Actually, there's interesting. I think there's a person on here that back then, one day when I was really drunk, I disclosed it to, and you know who you are actually if you see this. And you were the only person, funny enough, at that time. And we've not, it's funny, isn't it? I've not connected with you much, maybe because I've known that I've told you about this interesting insight. But anyway, I'm going to reach out to you. You'll know who you are. Yeah, I think that, along with, you know, a lot of people know on here as well, I've been to prison. I went to prison. It's interesting actually, because I've been I've had a big mirror up in my own at my own face for a good couple of years now, and initially it's very I found it very difficult to look into, but once I have, and I've started just being able to talk about certain things that have happened, that was a big one for me. I think what started that off for me in regards to when I really started thinking about that was when, after I had my little girl, and it was just one of them days I just had that horrible thought, and then it just reminded me of what I went through, and the fact that I didn't tell anyone until years later. I told my parents, which is another story, another conversation. But even then, I didn't tell them the full story. It's interesting. In fact, I had a conversation with my mum this morning, which led me to doing this, because I've been sort of building up to doing this. Sorry if I'm jabbering on, to get this out there, because I now want to use... Well, actually, let's put it this way. If my son or my daughter went through that and didn't tell me, oh, God, you know, I'd feel broken. I'd feel it. Such a failure to have not created like a safe enough space for them to communicate. I think that's vital as a parent, And listen, it's not a dig at parents, it's not a dig at my mum and dad in any way, shape or form, because it's, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, for me now, I'd look out for signs of, because I've it's interesting. I recently I made a video for myself, and this was working with an incredible life coach, and we're going to get onto the whole life coaching thing in a minute, who shared what happened to her when she was young. And I listened to her and I was like, oh my God, like, look at you now. And that's what you need to be doing. You need to be telling other young girls in this day and age with how social media is. I was thinking of my daughter as well. If, you know, sometimes it does take another voice other than, you get to, especially in your teenage years, you don't listen to your parents after time. You know, you start thinking you know best. But anyway, so I saw such an amazing tool in someone else's vulnerability, such a strength that they could then go off, and I said, you know, that's your duty. You're obligated to share, because it is a shitty thing. But if you can prevent someone else from doing what you did by just letting them know, look, it's okay to feel this way, and for, like, you know, it can be life-saving. And that's not being dramatic. That you hear awful stories. So yeah, they created a safe enough space by just communicating. So just telling me how weak they felt they were and how vulnerable they felt they were at the time made me realise just how incredibly strong they actually are. And I'm not saying this about myself. I'm not saying I'm incredibly strong. That's not the point. My point is things need to be spoken about. And yeah, so I wanted to don't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to, sort of clear out my closet with everyone on here, so that when I'm jumping around. Okay, so 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I hit that low point. I was just sad, you know. Of professionally, a lot of you won't know, I've worked in the social care sector now for many years. Helped to design 2 applications to help people that deliver care, because I've personally, firsthand, been involved in with loved ones who have needed care, and played that role as a registered carer. And again, I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. It's not about it. What I'm saying is that was a passion, because this is all leading up to where I'm now at. So I worked in that sector for a long time, and again realised just how many people hold stuff in, and they don't talk about things, and when they do, every single time they feel better. There's got to be something in that, surely. So yeah, about 3 years ago, I'd left the care sector, because I'd worked in it at that point intensely for about 6 years. I was going all around the UK for 2 different companies, sort of product managing, finding out what it is that care needed, people that are delivering care, because like I said, I've genuinely got a big passion for our social care sector, and it's something we all need to be aware of. If you've got anyone, people will know, I'm sure, that I'm talking to. And if there's any carers on this page, please reach out as a friend and let me know, because I think you're incredible. The people that are involved in our care sector are phenomenally, amazingly undervalued, underacknowledged, and, you know, underheard people. And we've got this crap opinion in the UK that, in many cases, and again, I've seen this, I've visited well over 1,000 companies, definitely within that period. I've spoken to or given talks in front of definitely thousands of carers and listened to what they've said back. Anyway, so I don't want to digress too much, but that's a big part of where I am now, and what I'm doing next, funnily enough, is our care sector, which in the current climate, I think we should all just be a bit more aware of, and just give them a bit more than a clap. I think they deserve more than that. Anyway, so 3 years ago, I'd walked away from the care sector because of just how bad it was at that point. Was it even longer? Anyway, it was around that period. It was around 3, maybe even 4 years. But what was interesting is I realised that my role as a dad, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, as a friend, I started looking at myself, and you realise how many different roles you play in being this one, for me, this one James. And I couldn't honestly tell myself in any of those roles I was being the best version of myself. And that hit me quite hard, because prided myself on being a good dad and being loving and being caring. Not perfect, far from it, far from it. And you lot will know that. You lot have known me. I'm not perfect at all. Yeah, and I don't know, what was I then? I'm 39 now. Maybe I hit an early midlife crisis of morals. I don't know what it was, but I felt really down. And one of my friends on here, Harry Thomas, okay, who 6 years younger than me. We met 13 years ago when I was managing one of the gyms in a Fitness First gym in central London. I was part of the management team there. I was also a qualified personal trainer, which when I was in prison, I'd done my personal training qualifications. Anyway, Harry, when I knew him, was this anxious, just finding life, but very ambitious young man that I took under my wing, funny enough, if anything, and I'm sure he'll say the same. But yeah, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I missed a big bit of the story, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. In fact, no, I need to touch on that now. So I think part of the reason I was feeling quite drained at that point is about 6 years ago, I fell into working with people with cancer, and that's continued up until this day. So I did it on the side of what I was doing professionally. I've worked with many people all over the world now, and still am. Australia, America, Sweden, I'm trying to think who else, Ghana. Anyway, and it wasn't something I intended. It was something I fell into. So that played a point in the lull, because I realised I am quite empathetic, and I do find it difficult to, if you start spending time with someone who's been told basically that, in many cases, especially recently as well, that there's nothing else that can be done, sew up all your affairs and it's time to say goodbye. You start working with these people, you get, it's very difficult, and this is why I tip my hat to any nurses, doctors, anyone who's involved in this on a daily basis. The draining of your energy and how you manage that is incredible. That's why, to give you some figures, people, have a look at how many people are leaving our healthcare sector, which is scary, all because of, the biggest reason is mental health and well-being, and feeling emotionally drained. So that played a big part, because I wasn't being able to detach from working I was doing it for all the right intentions, and while I was with them I was Mr. Positive and still am, but I'd come back to my family, and then all the stuff that I'd built up of sadness and worry about them and their kids and my family would get. And it definitely played a role in my marriage. And I've got such an amazing wife who's God forgive me, I've let down over the years. But I'm now definitely every day trying to be the best person I can for her, because she deserves it, and my kids as well. So yeah, back to Harry. So it's really funny. I've, by the way, guys, for you who don't know, I went abroad for a few years. I had a business abroad in Greece, totaling for about 5.5 years between Athens and Rhodes Island. So I was away. Point being, while I was away, the only person I really kept in contact with was Harry from that period of my life, funnily enough. And I don't know why, it just was. But anyway, Harry, I started talking to Harry, we started reconnecting a bit more. And when I was talking to him, I was thinking, this ain't the Harry that I knew. He was so calm, almost like he'd come out with stuff like, yeah, but James, your past doesn't define you. I think, fuck me, what? Were you Yoda? And all of this really simple messages that when we talk, and it was interesting, because what happened was, eventually, because I asked him, what is it you do? And he told me and whatnot. And I still dismissed it at that point. Life coach? Fucking life coach? Even though we'd been having good conversations by that point, and he'd been life coaching me. I think what happened was then, around that, after a few months of reconnecting with Harry, and really, I started looking to Harry to have these conversations, because what I was realising was I was talking to Harry about stuff that actually mattered, and stuff that for some reason I wasn't talking to the people in my immediate circles that I should have been about it, for some reason, I'd talk to Harry about it. Mainly because he'd listen and not judge me. He would just listen. He would literally intently listen. And sometimes I'd finish talking and he'd just be sitting like this. And in my head I'm thinking, is he listening? What the fuck's he doing? And in that time, I'd think, right, let me talk. I better say something. And I'd go back. And what would happen was, incredibly, I started unravelling. And then I started listening to myself. Number one, I hate the way my voice sounds, for the record. But more importantly, what words I was using, and how negative I was about things. So I took on Harry as my life coach. I invested in someone 6 years younger than me, which was difficult because he's still in my head. I was battling, this is the same kid I was taking care of, and he's now helping me be a better dad. He's not even got kids. He's helping me be a better husband. He's fucking Harry, with the greatest respect at that period. You were shagging everything moving. So at that period, for the record, yeah. So that took me on a journey, and Harry you changed my life, Hazza, for the better. You made me someone with no kids, made me a better dad. Someone without a spouse made me a better husband, and improved all the different roles I play in my life, and just made me aware of putting effort into myself. To be my best self meant that I was doing it for other people by doing it for myself. Because if I'm being the best dad I believe I can be, I'm not the best dad. I fail all the time, but I'm trying. Same with a husband, be the best husband. I started noticing that ripple effect, people was noticing, really was noticing. So anyway, I then decided, because Harry then joined me with my work, because of the difference he made with me, I said to him, mate, you need to work with me with these people with cancer, because it's predominantly cancer. It's not just, I've worked with people with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, leaky gut syndrome. Yeah, it's just become a passion with a skill set that I've now developed, that I was doing it raw for years. To be completely honest, my biggest lesson in life, without a shadow of a doubt, Harry, you are there, but even slightly nudging you, was working with the people that have been told that there's nothing else that could be done. Experiencing humanity from a soul perspective, and not just one person now, we're talking quite a few people over the last nearly 6 years that have all been told pretty much, and bear in mind, these people have been battered by mainstream medicines. And that's not a dig, it's just what happens. You have chemo and radiotherapy, which is what we're told is the treatment. These are very damaging, and a lot of people will know this, but people that don't know this may have cancer, God forbid, or know someone with cancer. Just look into the treatments that are available and what they do, and at least what you can do to support your immune system when you're having these treatments, because that's really important. I'm not saying anything to be a dick here, but for now nearly 6 years I've studied a specific part of the human anatomy that I never even knew existed. It's called the endocannabinoid system, and I've got to a stage now where I'm very proud to say I'm talking to people within that field regularly about the progress that's being made on how humans currently interact with their endocannabinoid, ECS. It's called ECS, too long with it. So endocannabinoid system, ECS. So anyway, that's just, again, different subject, but really, really important. If you know anyone with cancer, start looking into that stuff. Start looking into the Gerson diet, Dr. Gerson. He's dead now, but his daughter, Charlotte, still gives talks, and you can find her stuff on YouTube. There's lots of incredible testimonials, because, cancer is a big, big part of what I'm doing and moving forward. And, it's now an official statistic is 1 in 2 people. So I think we should all be wary of cancer. But anyway, I said to Hazza, mate, you need to come on board. And Hazza said to me, he said, oh, so I forgot to finish that story. Sorry, people. This is a part of me that I've probably done all my life and you're all aware of. I fucking can bounce all over the place. To finish that part, so working with them people and and it wasn't the case for all of them, but I'd say 80% of the people I've worked with have all gone, when it's to fight or flight, have all fought and taken incredibly brave decisions that their families didn't agree with as well. That is, puts them in a position of ridicule to an extent. But I've just seen the fight in humans when our backs are against the wall is incredible. And like I said, it's not one type of person. It's male, female, black, white, brown, whatever. Like that, we've worked with people now. I say we has because that's where we're at with this now, from all over the world, from different walks of life. But what is interesting, what is inherent every time, without fail, in all of them, in 100%, is they all go back to their core values, which I think is inherent, which is love and kindness and sharing, and which is what is a real shame, again, 100% of the time, is there's regrets for them not expressing how they felt to people, specific people. I wish I'd have I'm not talking that one. And when you start down that route, like I said, I'm not an expert. I was watching these people who, they were told they were dying. And by the way, not all, but a lot of these people are still here. Okay, by the way, and that's a really interesting point. But yeah, that was a big teaching because it made me appreciate life. Why wouldn't it? You tell me one of you's there that if you was working with people that were dying, that was showing you on a daily basis fight and what matters, that rubs off. And that was a massive, massive life coach lesson that I went through prior to even you, Hazza. But then with Hazza and Hazza saying, you're a life coach, you just need to do the skill set. There's a bit of neuroscience and stuff involved that I need to get my head around. So I did the Mindful Talent, which is the name of the company, life coaching course to become a transformational life coach. Now, I'm not singing, woo, look at me, I'm going to change the world and I'm perfect. Don't work like that. I'm quite obsessive. Although I was an academic when I was at school and I didn't really care for it, that changed a lot as I got older. Now I'm really keen to further my knowledge on a lot of stuff. And I looked into life coaching because I thought it was like a therapy, where you sit down and someone takes you back to the dark place. So for me, again, that's what would have put me off it anyway. Is I don't want to go back and revisit about the sexual abuse and even prison to an extent. And you just sort of, well, I did. I shouldn't say you because I'm not going to assume. You move on. I did. I moved on, but I didn't deal with it. Importantly, so when I looked into life coaching as a therapy, which is not, it is so not a therapy in any way, shape, or form, and that's what is amazing about it. I started realising, okay, it starts by you having to look at yourself. Right, that's interesting. So I said to Haz, I said, look, mate, I quit my job at that point. I had a well-paid job that was the way my household is set up. I'm the breadwinner. My wife works harder than me as a full-time mum. She's incredible. And that's how our team has been set up. So when I quit my job, obviously I had to explain it to my wife and said, look, babe, I'm quitting my job, going for a life coach, nothing sure. This is a pandemic. This is all recent as well, that this whole official change to the life coaching qualification has taken place is quite recent in the last year. And yeah, I realised the more I looked into life coaching is you have to start with a mirror and you have to address all the stuff that you've got going on in your past, because I'm telling you, I'm going to be quite presumptuous. Most of the worries, every single one of yous have got, most of the anxieties, aren't in your present. They're either things that have happened or things that you're foreseeing are going to happen, which you can't control what's happened, and you definitely can't control what's going to happen either. You can only control with what's going on now. So that was what was an incredible insight for me, was to learn, okay, so it's all about life coaching is an equilibrium. You both start where you are right now. So with Harry, and I relived my experience as being a coachee and Harry my coach. And that's what it was. Hazard would just say, yeah, James, okay, but what have you got going on now? And it used to drive me fucking mental initially, because I'd think, well, I can't concentrate on what's going on now because I've got all this stuff that's happened and I don't own it and I can't do nothing about it, but I'm going to put all my energies there. And because of that stuff, that's going to make that. And it is, if you think about it, that is what we do as humans. That's what I did. And I'm now working with people from the corporate world, from the entertainment industry, from all walks of life. And it's the same for everyone. It seems that our biggest worries and concerns in life are stuff that is nothing to do with our current situation. Well, oh no, but it is because of this. No, it's not. It's not. It can't be. If it's in your past, okay, your past don't even exist. Your past was a now when it was back then. But that was it. That literally was it. My prison happened. Nothing to do with my present. You know, I've done, in my opinion, I've done well since. I used prison to further my skill set in sports, which I always loved, become a personal trainer, come out, got straight into a job and working, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. So, when I actually look back on it, was it that bad? Some good decisions were made in that point. So in my present back then in prison, made the most of it, in my opinion. Sexual abuse. At the time, fuck me, it was awful. Because just to touch on that a little bit more very quickly, that was my introduction to alcohol as well, because I was only like 13, and this person was older than me, 10 years older than me, really dude, like you wouldn't have thought this would have ever happened. Like this guy was very conniving and he wormed his way in. But anyway, point being, it wasn't, I didn't even know, because of the blackouts, I wasn't even sure things were happening until one time I thought, right, I'm not going to get drunk tonight. Like, something's definitely not right. I can feel certain things, I don't want to be too graphic, that ain't right. Like, but again, I promise you, that is how warped and nah, until one night I pretended to be drunk and then I was like, okay, right. Anyway, so, to give you a little bit more on that, basically. But, yeah, even that happened. I didn't deal with it well. I let it play a massive role in then what went on in my life after that. And when I think of the way I've acted towards certain females a part of my life, where treat them like shit, absolute. And I look back at now, and again, I am eternally sorry for anyone that, you know, and you are a much better person than I am and was back then as well, for the way you people have dealt with anyone who's dealt with me being a cock, basically. And if I've made you feel down at that point by me being a cock, just know you are incredible. Back then, you was better than me back then, and you should have stood up tall, and that's how I hope you are now. And I know you are, because there's loads of people I could rattle off where I think, I actually thought I was more popular than them, or better. You know, what a dick. What an absolute dick was I. But a lot of you are my heroes. There's a lot of you I could name names of people that from my childhood. So anyway, yeah. Come full circle. Now I'm a life coach. I work with people on a daily basis that are terminally ill. I've got some incredible stories around that, which I'm so proud of, just to be a part of these people's journey. I also work with kids as well, which I'm super proud about. And it's interesting because working with people that are dying for so long, or been told that they're dying, or sick, to then now have that balance of working with kids as well, who just breathe. I know you all know this. You know, the kids breathe life into everything. Everything is a great balance for me now to have. So I love that. And yeah, what's interesting as being a life coach, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I know more than you. That's not it. What I do for a living, and I get paid for now, which I think is incredible, is to sit there and listen to incredible human beings tell me their stories, and just listen. Literally just turn up and listen, really listen, so that when I take in the information from these people and their emotion and their energy, because I've genuinely listened and I'm so just like in awe, I'll come back. And that's the same with kids. Trust me. And that was a big lesson for me as a dad. What trained me to now be, I mean, I've got my qualifications and whatnot, but still my biggest lessons was with my own kids, which I still fail on a daily basis. Like I said, we never get it right all the time. But just by holding the space with my son, who, bless him, for years had massive, there was a lot of issues with Leo when he was born. It was an emergency cesarean at the end. It was horrible. And the surgeon said to us, your son's going to have issues because he was premature and his lungs hadn't developed just the finer bits at the end. There was a couple of weeks worth of, in fact it was more than that, it's about 6 weeks worth of development that didn't happen. Anyway, he said that your boys gonna have health issues, cardiovascular, breathing, lung issues, and he did. And he also developed, which we didn't know as parents. Again, just shows me how unpresent I was being with my son. We was in Greece at the time, but Leo's speech was clearly off for a few years, and we didn't know. We was in a foreign country. We had a broken dialect with doctors trying to understand what was going on. It was only when we came back to England, because we also we moved back from Greece because we lost a child late at a point in pregnancy where you're definitely not supposed to lose a child, and my wife went through, it was awful. She had to go through giving birth to our little boy Che, who we named, who was obviously who'd passed at that point. But yeah, that brought us back to England, because that sort of burst the bubble that we had in that lifestyle and my business over in Greece at the time. Came back to England, and it was only then that, back to Leo, that we went to an English doctor, and basically Leo, for 3.5 years of his life, in the doctor's opinion, has had in both ears the very worst case of glue ear that he'd ever experienced. So he put us some headphones on, me and my wife, and said, listen, that's what your son has dealt with. And honestly, I broke, so did my wife, because you just think, oh my God, how helpless was we? How useless was we? But anyway, point being, because Leo was a bit of a dib-a-dob-dab-dib to an extent, and I love you, Leo, you're perfect in every way back then. Of course, as parents, what we did do is we learned to understand him. But then what that turned into was, when he got older and he was being able to formulate words, what did I do? I'll talk for myself only. Is at being frustrated of him maybe taking too long, or me being concentrated, not being present with him, and just appreciating that my little boy is trying his hardest to formulate words, I'd be finishing his sentences and think, oh yeah, Leo, just do it, which is the worst thing I could have done. I don't do any of that anymore, but just to show my point about being present, is now with my son, I just let him talk. And honestly, dads and mums as well, but just for me, it was a dad experience with my boy, and I was just like, oh my God, and when I say hold the space, like when you think they're finished and you think you know the answer to tell them what to do next, keep your mouth shut and just wait. And I promise you, your son, your daughter, your child is just as incredible as mine. They all are. So that was a big learning as well. So yeah, I work with kids now, and that's just been absolutely amazing. Kids are the frigging best. But yeah, and it's such a nice mix. I work in the corporate world still as well, and like I said, the entertainment industry, and massively now we're about to launch a big project into the care sector, something I really, really care about. And yeah, I wanted to share, sorry I've really rattled on, I only wanted to make a short video, it was 39 minutes, but for anyone who's sat through any of this, even for a second, I hope at the beginning I just said thank you, and like I said, you've all played a part in my life to some extent. This was just me reintroducing myself. I got older, I'm losing my hair, teeth is cracked, going through that whole look at yourself part of your life where I'm trying to keep the belly down, but I'm okay with that now. And I just wanted to share a bit of me with you lot, because I am in such a better place, and I'm going to be more visually vocal on here now. So rather than just pop up and thinking, fuck me, what's gone on with James, and you know, that it's not the James we knew. No, I'm not, to an extent, to many of yous. I'm trying to be better. I've hopefully kept my core values, but I've hopefully taken out a lot of the dick, a lot of the knobness along the way. And yeah, just like I said, to finish up, just want to say, and be okay with it. I genuinely extend nothing but love to all of yous, and I look forward to reconnecting, hopefully, with anyone who wants to have a chat. Just have a chat as well. I don't mean as a life coach. I mean just have a chat, because that's what a life coach is, by the way. Is you talk and you listen and you enjoy the conversation and you talk about meaningful stuff. So yeah, thank you, Facebook. This is me for allowing me to reintroduce myself. And yeah, loads of love.